Hello and welcome. I am CJ Radune of RotoWire.com for your Formula One update here on the Prime Sports Network. Be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any of our motorsports videos all season long, including NASCAR, IndyCar, and Formula One. And Eric already has his IndyCar preview up for the weekend, and we've got the NASCAR preview that will be posted as well. All three series underway again this week here on Prime Sports. You can access my columns below by clicking the link in the description video of the video. And if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to let me know what is on your mind. So last week, what happened? It was the Monaco Grand Prix, and it was another Max Verstappen show. Fernando Alonso actually put up a very good charge, but the entire weekend really belonged to Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Verstappen now has won 4 of the first 6 races of the season, and he is really starting to separate himself in the championship standings. Red Bull has won every single race so far this year. Teammate Sergio Perez has 2 victories to Max's 4. Red Bull boss Christian Horner was asked earlier this weekend as teams unloaded in Spain as to whether or not he thought Red Bull could sweep the season. Still too early for that, but it's looking like it's entirely possible. So it was not a good weekend for one of the Red Bull cars, though, and that was Sergio Perez. He actually crashed in Saturday's qualifying, and that caused him to start 18th. And starting 18th and that far back in the field at Monaco, that's effectively a death sentence. So he was basically out of the fight as soon as that happened on Saturday. Impossible to pass at that track, and he was not able to climb forward and into the points. And Max Verstappen started on the front row, qualified on pole, actually slipped away. It was probably the best chance of any team, being Monaco, to surpass Red Bull, but unfortunately they still just couldn't get it done. Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso did their best. They actually took a gamble late in the race as the rain started to fall to try to beat Red Bull on tire decisions to get Fernando Alonso out there on the right tire given the conditions, get him ahead of Max Verstappen. But unfortunately, the weather just didn't cooperate. Everything kind of fell into Red Bull's hands, and Verstappen was able to get onto the right tires, get through the wet, and just maintain that lead all the way to the end. So unfortunately, the circumstances were outside of Aston Martin's control, but still, Aston Martin, Alonso, it was an impressive runner-up finish for them, and then some extra momentum as Alonso goes to Spain this weekend, which is his home race. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. And he has been just a podium machine so far this year. He and Verstappen just seem to be the two that, regardless of the race, regardless of the week, regardless of the conditions, end up on the podium pretty much every single week at this point. So where was our biggest surprise in Monaco? The other podium finisher, Esteban Ocon, with his 3rd place. Alpine was on fire at Monaco. Both drivers finished inside the top 10. Ocon qualified 3rd and actually finished 3rd for a podium finish, which was absolutely fantastic for that team. So I see it, whether you call them Alpine or Alpine, debatable. I've been calling them Alpine, whatever. They stepped up in the prior race, and they held on to that through Monaco. So great momentum from them. Early indications of their speed at Spain this weekend have actually been very good. Actually have them up behind Alonso and Verstappen with the Red Bull. So Alpine making a strong and consistent case for best of the rest honors for the rest of the season. So definitely look out for them this weekend. And in this weekend, the European season well and truly gets underway with the Spanish Grand Prix. It's actually the Formula One AWS Grand Prix of Spain. And this is a Circuit de Catalunya, that is very familiar to all of the teams and drivers. It's one of the main testing venues for Formula One from the past, and teams used to spend weeks on end getting their cars sorted out before each season heading into Spain. It's still one of the 2, even though testing days have been reduced, it's still one of the 2 venues where testing for the preseason actually happens alongside with Bahrain. So teams know this track extremely well. Lewis Hamilton has won 6 times. Verstappen has won twice. And Alonso, this is his home Grand Prix. He's won it twice as well. So this weekend will actually be the 33rd time that the series is raced at this circuit, which is That's a lot. And it's being the return to Europe, teams now are closer to their home base. So this is where they're going to start unloading their chassis development items thicker and faster. Some of that would have been kicked off at Imola, except as you all know, that race was rained out. Some of the teams actually opted to bring some of their upgrades to Monaco last week, but Monaco being what it is, short, tight, very slow, all about track position and qualifying. You really couldn't get a feel for how those upgrades are really going to pan out when we get to these faster tracks, more wide open, like the Circuit de Catalunya. Though Alpine, they brought some upgrades as well, but it'll be interesting to see how those play out through the race this weekend in Spain. The biggest upgrade, I would say, came from Mercedes at Monaco last week. They took a completely different design with their side pods. And, they took a different design with their side pods to start the season. Actually, they had no side pods. It was really kind of a unique approach to the aerodynamic rules. They went back on that. They reversed it back in Monaco. So it's going to be interesting to see how that actually plays out this weekend at Spain, or in Spain, where they're going to have, we're going to be able to get a true feel for what their race pace is and what those upgrades give to the team. Mercedes is historically one of the best at continuing improving their car and getting the most out of it as they move forward. So they're definitely one to watch. However, the speeds in practice from a Mercedes standpoint aren't quite there yet. We'll see what happens Saturday in qualifying. The other interesting thing coming into Spain is a safety car trend. So the start of the season, every single race had a safety car. So we've now had multiple races and multiple street course races where safety cars are almost a given. We've actually had 2 races in a row where we haven't had one. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Spain. I'm going to go with the safety car prop as being a no. You can see the odds for that down on the scroller at the bottom of the screen. But Spain, it's a natural terrain road course, plenty of runoff room, unlike Monaco. So I would expect that we have a lower chance of actually seeing a safety car or a full course caution coming out this weekend. Hopefully that just enables everybody to race for it throughout the race. That's ultimately what we all want to see anyway. So given that, it is going to be a wide open weekend at Spain, and it's medium to high speed circuit. And I think that's where Red Bull is actually going to be at their strongest. So if they were at their weakest last week in Monaco, you got something coming for you this week in Spain where they're probably going to be at their strongest. It's generally going to be a 2-stop race. Drivers and teams, they're going to have to manage their tire wear. And this is a place that is notoriously difficult on tires. A lot of right-hand turns put a lot of pressure in those left-hand tires. And if your balance is off, or if your car's just not handling the way that you need, you're going to put way too much energy and put way too much wear on those left-hand tires. And those are going to be a problem as you try to maintain your race pace along with the competition. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think all of those factors, Red Bull's Max Verstappen in Miami just put on a tire management school class. Everybody should have gone to class and learned from what he did in Miami. So, all signs pointing towards Max Verstappen and the Red Bull blowout again this weekend. Mercedes could also pick up some ground given those conditions, while their race pace remains in question given the upgrades and their change in philosophy on their side pods. They are one of the best in terms of developing that race strategy. And you've got 2 stops coming to pit road. There are a whole host of things that Mercedes could do to leapfrog their competition. That said, Aston Martin still has the speed, and specifically Fernando Alonso. So while you see Red Bull, specifically Verstappen, up there at the front, Fernando is probably going to be second or third. But you're going to see the Alpines, I think, the Alpines stepping in, probably taking maybe over the spot where Mercedes is. We'll see how Mercedes is on race pace. But I think what Alpine's got on their agenda right now is really strong. And I think we're going to see them come to the fore. The interesting thing, though, we've talked a few times about it. Where's Ferrari? You got another home Spaniard in terms of Carlos Sainz Jr. on Ferrari. So where are they? Monaco, they were behind the ball as well. Charles Leclerc qualified third, but he ended up with a blocking infringement. So he lost that position, unfortunately. Just his bad luck at his home race continues. But Ferrari in general, we've talked about it all season. Just poor race pace. They've got to come with some developments. We'll see what they've got in store for the race in Spain. Nothing's going to be a game changer for them, though. I think they're going to be struggling actually to put either one of their drivers on the podium. I think it's probably going to end up being Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, maybe one of the Alpine drivers popping in there. So even though the odds are not terribly favorable, the pick this week has got to be Verstappen and Red Bull. And quite honestly, you got to get him early. He's already the clear-cut favorite. You can see those scrolling below. He and Perez actually are the favorites. You got quite a gap there for Alonso. But, it's motor racing. Anything can happen. And if anything happens to the Red Bulls, Alonso is going to be lying there in wait. So it might not be bad for those that are looking for a higher payout to go ahead and go with the Fernando Alonso choice. When you look at the teams, if you don't want to look at a particular driver, Red Bull is so strong that the odds for just choosing Red Bull as the team winner, even worse than Verstappen alone. So you're going to have to look at somebody else. As I said, Alonso is going to be your main man, so you might want to think about Aston Martin if you're going with the team. He and Verstappen, as I mentioned, both have 2 prior wins. Hamilton has 6, so maybe Mercedes is in there. But I'm going to say Aston Martin's probably going to want to be your top choice there. And, look at the odds as they come out. And as we go through qualifying, you might want to go take a look at Alpine too if they're a little bit more attractive. So looking at those, Ferrari is in the mix, but honestly, with their race pace compared to the odds that you're going to get for an Aston Martin, if you're looking for a little bit more of a gamble, but not as big of a gamble as going with a complete turnaround from Ferrari, I think you want to go for Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, perhaps Alpine as the best of the rest pick there. So, we've got a big weekend of racing coming ahead. We got the Indy cars at Detroit. We got Formula One in Spain. And we've got NASCAR out at Gateway. We actually got Xfinity out at Portland, too. So we're covering the globe. And if you want to stay in touch with all the racing action, tune in here to Prime Sports Network. Again, I am CJ Radune of RotoWire.com. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss any of those motorsports videos. As I mentioned, we got all the major series in action this weekend, so make sure to tune in. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them my way. Put them in the comments box, and make sure you click on the link for access to all of my articles as we go through the Formula One season here. In the meantime, enjoy the racing at Spain. It's going to be another Max Verstappen Red Bull weekend, but try to enjoy it, see what Fernando Alonso can do at his home race. And in the meantime, keep it out of the fence.